Today, we will be doing peer assessment of your drafts, and you will be providing descriptive feedback to fellow classmates so that we can go back and revise our drafts and come up with our final product. What I would like you to do now is pick one member from each group and rotate in a clockwise fashion around the room. And you will explain your rough draft to the group. They will tell you at least one thing that you have done well in your graphic text, one thing that needs improvement, and some next steps to improve the overall graphic text. After we've finished a full rotation of all the groups, I want you to get back into your groups, and we will provide you with time to debrief all of the critical information you have on this peer assessment sheet to work together in groups.
I was just talking to Ashti about the plot. It starts out really well, and it's building, and then all of a sudden, like, this frame happens, and it just doesn't make sense. So
there's a problem with transitions.
So I'm going to put that under needs improvement. You want to have a logical sequence of ideas, so that to get to the implicit, ultimately, you have to have the reasoning that builds it.
So you're saying that there basically always needs to be a logical connection between the explicit meaning and the implicit meaning to the reader.
We couldn't really make the connection, so after adding maybe a few more pictures to build that transition, you can have someone else read it.
But what exactly do you think you're missing in the transition?
I think it's definitely the motivation. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Why would he do that?
Yes.
And the message, because of that, like, the reasoning isn't clear, the message then suffers.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
You could do some foreshadowing. So maybe he has, like, I don't know, like, knives by his bed or in his pocket, or he has blood stains somewhere, and you think that it's because he's a doctor, and it like drops hints. Like with each one, you could add something else that foreshadows one murder, because that's your message.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What I'd like to see you improve on is your next steps in terms of how we're going to improve the overall flow of the story from this scene to this scene. Now we're going to look at different strategies to improve our writing. Debrief these sheets. How are you going to implement the descriptive feedback to move to the next stage, which is going to be your final product?
What they thought we needed more of was that we need more plot transitions. So in order to make the story more fluid,
I don't think we should like take away too much from the mystery of the character. So then I think we should just add like some subtle details.
so I guess that would be adding more frames into the story.
So how's it going so far?
So we needed more transitions to improve the clarity of our meaning.
Okay.
So we were gonna add in little details in between our scenes.
Another thing we want to do is maybe at the end add a quote.
Yeah.
So just to tie in the entire message really well, just as an ending quote.
Make sure that you're linking your goals to the success criteria. What I want you to do right now is set an individual learning goal, okay? So what do you guys have to do to take the story to the next level?
And for next steps, we need to add more characterization and more detail to the plot. What do you guys think?
Yeah, but I think we should focus on spacing out the action.
It's going to be one panel per page. So the panels will be bigger and the story will be much easier to follow.
So has the descriptive feedback been helpful?
Since we wrote the story, when we illustrated it, it made sense to us, but then people were telling us that some of them were kind of dense. So if we spread out some of the panels and added more detail, it would be helpful for the reader.
What I'd like you to do right now, jot down one overall goal for improvement that you need to focus on, and then I'll be back to check up.
So I think like the biggest point is still just to like break it up into smaller frames, so that
We have to convert this disorganized 2 pages of rough work into a coherent and good-looking final product.
Any other points?
Our second goal was to add frames to show the doctor's, our main character's normality. So basically it ties into the success criteria of panels directing readers across the story so that it's more fluid and the story makes more sense graphically and visually.
And then the last thing we wanted to do was add a quote at the end. Because that basically ties into the very first success criteria for the allegory, which is we, the author, we intend to communicate a meaningful message, and so by adding a quote, basically we're nudging the reader forward towards the meaning that we're trying to convey.
Now, what I really like about this is that you've tied in the suggestions for improvement to the success criteria.
Well, in fact, like all our goals are based from the feedback we got from our peers.
Yeah.
What Ashley shared with us after she rotated around the class.
Right.
That's exactly what we tied into our goal and related to